house is going to be halfway done, I guess, and then we're on to the roof.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Island Life Cabin Build. This is episode number 7. I'm super happy you guys are tuning in and liking what we're putting out. Thank you so much for your comments and subscribing to our channel. It's very overwhelming. We didn't expect this at all. So really appreciate that. And if you have any questions about us, about the build, please leave it in the comments below and we'll try to address it in a timely manner. So in this video, Clayton is still working by himself on the cabin. He is working on the load-bearing beams for the loft and then moves on to actually installing the roof beam. Before we get to the construction, we didn't really explain how we got to the island initially. We went straight to the barge. So I want to introduce you to our boat, our trusty boat that we use to go back and forth to the island when we're not carrying a lot of gear. I started to name it Sea Cat. That's after a boat that we had quite the experience on in Nicaragua, but it's just like a pretty short little tin boat. I don't know the specifics because I'm not Clayton, but this is a 6 horsepower Yamaha motor. It has an internal gas tank, which is really handy for being portable, and that's useful for when we head over to the boat ramp, which is there, because we have to carry it up. We can't just we don't have a trailer that we're going to drop the boat off into, so it's really nice to be able to hand bomb it. And here is the inside of the boat. This is inherited from Clayton's dad, and it's gotten us pretty far. Obviously we collected some rainwater, but also it has a leak, so maybe in the future an upgrade, but not right now. Now that you've been introduced to the Sea Cat, we can move back to the main event of Clayton building the cabin.
This is the beam for my loft. This is what's going to carry all the weight. So right now what we're doing is creating a pocket. You can see my ladder there, and the end of this beam, which is right here, is going to be going in that pocket that you see I just cut out. So I made a bunch of relief cuts and now I'm going to chisel it out. So by today we're hoping to have that beam up in the air, and tomorrow we'll put our joists in, and that'll be our subfloor for a loft, and that will hold up everything. We got the material separated and counted today right here. Those are all different pieces I need for my front porch and everything. Okay, so there's the notch right here. So it's finished out, cut into the wall nicely, and then the end of this beam will be raised up on my stilts here that I'm about to make, and then we'll lay it in place. So there's the main beam coming out, and then on these 2 walls here and here will be where I sink in the ones tomorrow, but today we're going to get this one laid in.
Using the step method, he only has to lift up the load-bearing beam about a foot at a time, making it possible for him to get the beam up by himself. He then inserted the load-bearing beam into the pocket he had previously created and supported it underneath with one of the steps.
Today we've been notching out these pieces that are going to be our timbers that are going to be supported by this beam here. You can see our pockets we're creating. So I had to create a bunch of relief cuts here. Just kind of got the saw and cut them up, and then I chisel it all out. Each one takes me about a half hour to do. There's 10 of them. This side over here is already done. So I can show you this one. This is ready to go. Maybe a little bit of cleaning, but oh, look at that. Yeah, the sunset's going to come soon. That's what I'm going to next. A little update on the cabin. It's about almost 8:30, 8:22. Yeah, it's a beautiful day today at the cabin. Just having my coffee, my orange, taking a little break here. I started about 7 today. Yeah, it's a beautiful day. Overcast, which is great for the sun. So it's not raining, but it's still warm, but it's not crazy hot. So I finished all my notches today. Finished the last 2. So now we got 10 notches. So I'm going to do a little site cleanup here and get a little fire going, burn off some garbage. And then we're going to cut two front ones here, and they're going to go over to the beam. And once I get the beam lined up perfectly where I want it, nice and level, and there's no changes to it, then we take a post, we go from there down to the actual mark, which I have right there in the floor where my foot is. And yeah, we leg bolt those in. And I gotta leg bolt those two in, and then I lay in the rest of the beams today. So, if everything goes to plan, I should have the subfloor frame up with the beam here and all my 6x8 timbers, which are laying over here. I gotta pick up my timbers and I have to chop them down. And the rest of those timbers I'm not using, they're actually going for the deck. So they're gonna hang out there for now. And yeah, this house is gonna be halfway done, I guess, and then we're on to the roof. Yeah, so I got the first beam in. So the plan is to get the other one that's parallel to this one here. It comes over here. And then I put the post in. We're going to square everything up. And once the post goes in, then we're going to start laying in the rest.
Each cross beam was installed into the pocket that Clayton cut out, and again lag screwed into place. For reference, the lag screws I keep referring to, this is what they look like. Quite long with one threaded end. So the next step that Clayton undertook after those beams were installed for the bottom of the loft floor was the ridge beam. A pretty big deal, pretty scary part of it. Again, I was not on the island when he was doing this, so he had to do it all alone. I don't know how much I would have helped him anyway because I'm afraid of heights. So for those who don't know, a ridge beam is basically the top beam of the roof. So the roof comes down from the ridge beam. It basically is the skeleton of the roof. Tricky part was that usually when you build a cabin that has access to machinery, you can build this ridge beam and the ridge supports on the ground and then use a crane to like lift it in place and place it in place, but obviously we don't have that option here. So he had to install it himself. So first what he did was create some scaffolding to extend the loft floor out so he has more of a platform to work on. And then he had to install the ridge beam supports. So the ridge beam supports are 6x6s and they're 9 feet long, and they go on either side of the cabin to support the main ridge beam. He installed that and placed two 2x6s on either side of each ridge beam to create a U pocket so that he can lay in the ridge beam on the top. So he actually had the task of figuring out how he is going to get the ridge beam actually up to the top of the cabin. He did that by actually building it up there in place. So a ridge beam, in this case for our kit, is composed of 25-foot long engineered beams. They're 12 inches deep, and there's 3 of them, and they usually are glued and fastened together. And then again, crane would pick it up, put it on top. But as we don't have that option, Clayton then took each beam of the 3, each beam one at a time, brought it up to the cabin floor, which is 6 feet off the ground, and then shimmied it into the cabin. Then he climbed into the cabin himself, then grabbed or propped it up on the scaffolding that he had created for the ridge supports, and then got up onto the scaffolding, shimmied it up by hand, just muscled it up, and laid it across the scaffolding so one end was near each of the ridge supports or ridge beam supports. He created this little table that was basically a work platform that would get him higher, that he placed on top of the loft floor. He grabbed one end of the single of the 3 beams and put it into the U pocket that he created earlier on the ridge beam supports. He put that one side, he clamped it, then moved to the other side of the cabin, grabbed that end of the beam, and again placed it in the U pocket and clamped it there again. He then repeated this process 3 times, And then at the end, he would glue and fasten as necessary while the beam was in place. So that beam is composed of 3 of those engineered beams I mentioned earlier.
So by himself, Clayton installed the ridge beam of the cabin at 24 feet 6 inches from the ground.
One major milestone hit and a lot more to come.